Hello, this is Dan Castle, inviting you to the first video review of the new Business Excellence Leaders Program slide deck for 2014. Purpose of this video is to give a little bit of advice on those who will be leading the Business Excellence Leaders Program on the content of the slide deck and considerations you might have when you're doing so. So this will be a brief review of the slide deck. Please look at it and it'll give you some idea of how to treat the slides and also what you could be expected to do as part of the way in which you are teaching things. So the opening slide here is the Business Excellence Leader Program, day one. This is for a 4-day class. Backdrop of the slide is just a welcome mat, and this is saying we are glad that you guys are all here. And this will be, the slide deck is built on a standard, fairly small slide master. And so you'll see a lot of repeat images throughout the slide deck. That's by intention. It helps you to know when you're getting to certain areas. Also, what you'll see is, as we go on to the next slide here, when you see imagery, that we've tried to put in a lot more imagery. This is imagery that's pulled from public domain sources. Particularly, a lot of this is coming from PowerPoints, available online pictures. Hopefully that will make it a little bit less boring to look at the different slides. In this particular case, you'll see the safety-related information. You, as an instructor, are expected to fill in the appropriate information on the right-hand side there for whatever's going on in the particular venue that you are going to be preparing this for. Note in the bottom right-hand corner that we do have a numbering system for the slide set. If you do want to put more information into the slide set, please be aware that if you add in slides or take slides out, it might rechange the page numbers on the slides because the printed documentation that your students have will have those same kind of page numbers on there. Please try to avoid having changes to the slide set that would alter the page count so that it ceases to agree with the paper documents that you're providing to the students. Okay, so anyway, this particular one, safety-related information, is the one that you're expected to go through and do changes on right away. Make sure you do it. It's an important one. Make sure you go through it sufficiently so that you do have a safe environment. Not only are you, in fact, helping to have a safe environment for the people who are there, you're also modeling the behavior that we want to have for the Tata group, which is a focus on safety and genuine caring for the safety of our people. Okay, slide 3, quick statement here. Why are we here? You'll see that this is the first place where we have kind of a standard slide that has the thoughtful person. You'll see these showing up throughout. We're kind of using the term buzz as what these slides are. So this is a place where you're looking for the people in the class to actually be kind of volunteering what their thoughts are. So you'll see that. Now, for this slide, you'll also note that if you look at the notes section of your of the slide deck, it has more advice on it. So this video is to supplement, but you'll see that there's instructor notes throughout the slide deck at appropriate places. So please review the slide deck and review the notes for that. In my particular case, I have the video in front of me where I'm looking at it now, but I also have an additional device that is showing me the PowerPoint presentation where it shows me the current slide, the next slide, and the instructor notes. It would probably be a good idea, if you can, to set up your laptop so that you are able to see such a view on your laptop even while the regular presentation is being projected. That way you're aware that instructor notes are coming up, and in addition you'll see that you'll see the next slide coming up and the instructor notes as well. Okay, so why are we here? Just a brainstorming thing. And so basically in that particular case, you should take about less than a minute per person to kind of make sure that everyone feels like they're included. Now, as we go on to the next step, this is where you're really wanting to get your tables that you have people together. You want them to build their social relationships. So this is kind of a very short team table task that gives them an assignment. It's also where you'll see that throughout the slide deck over the next 4 days worth of material, this kind of a slide will come up quite often, or regularly at least. Team table task, you'll always see that same image of the people sitting around the table and the advice that you should at this point be getting these teams to realize that they should be appointing a leader, a timekeeper, a scribe, and a reporter to ensure that their task gets done. We have an estimate of the task time as well. That's kind of a guideline. We're trying to figure out with your help, hopefully, in feedback as to what is the appropriate amount of time to spend on each of these areas. Okay, anyway, I'm not going, as we go through this slide deck, I'm not going to go and read through each one. This is just to supplement that, so this is not actually going through and trying to teach the whole class. Okay, slide 4, program objectives. Again, just to kind of read through there and help make sure that people feel that they're in the right room for the right purpose. And this is also where you're building their commitment to what they're going to be doing with the knowledge that's coming through, post this kind of a class. This class is not intended just to be a training class. We have expectations of the way in which people will actually act after this class, including their very valued participation in the TBEM process for the Tata group or for their internal TBEM processes for their companies. We will now come into, every so often there will be some, in this case we're on slide 6, we will have hopefully more so different little kind of activities that happen throughout the slide deck. In this particular case, this is a fill in the blanks. This is encouraging people to come up with the best answer they can. In this case, achieving B something D results. It says what word starts with a B and ends with a D that would be appropriate to put in this area. In this particular case, as you press the mouse click, you'll have each of these things being filled in to give you the word. So in this case, achieve balanced results. So for every one of these fill-ins, every time you press a mouse click, you'll get the next word filled in. So you can kind of help bring through the volunteering from the floor as to what they think each of these are, and then you can let them fill in at that point. Okay, and so in this case, you'll see it gets cleared before it goes on. That's mainly, oddly enough, it's mainly so that when we print out the slide deck, that the answers aren't printed in these slides, aren't on the printed version if somebody does print this out. Okay, now we are here at the agenda. This agenda that you see in front of you will be repeated in some fashion throughout the presentation, so it always keeps you on track. Rather than going and saying, when is a lunch break, when is a tea break, what we've done is we've taken the content and broken it into 4 sessions per day, the assumption being that after the first session you do a tea break, after the second session you do lunch, third session you do tea break, and fourth session then you're done. However, because we're not officially declaring team breaks and so forth, we're just seeing the session ones, you can, as session numbers, you can therefore be a bit more flexible in the way in which you place breaks into your activity. Be aware though that you're the one that has to make that call. Ideally, it would be a good idea for you to try to appoint someone in the room to help you in timekeeping the overall session, to try to keep you on track. It has 2 benefits. One, it helps keep you on track, and 2 is that if people are not happy with where we are during the process as far as timing is concerned, you're not the only one that's going to take the blame. You'll have a partner who will also be doing that, and the partner will be kind of one of the student body as well, so it kind of keeps you better connected to the student body. Anyway, agenda day 1 is here. Then, because this is the first time, we'll show them the agenda for the remaining days, day 2, day 3, and then day 4. And what you'll see in these is that this particular transition of slides has this roll-up thing so that it shows continuity. The rest of the slide set, as we go forward, you'll see transitions are done in what PowerPoint calls the cube methodology, and so it's a kind of a more active looking transition from slide to slide. Keeps things a little bit more interesting. If you need to and you get tired of seeing cubes move, you could go through and change transitions on the slides, but that's the reason why you see the cubes going on, is that it's just to make it so that it's a little bit more active as you're presenting the material, because the material can otherwise be pretty dry, and so we're doing what we can to make it so that it feels a little bit less dry. In this case, we are now saying how are we going about the assessor selection process. This should be fairly familiar to you. The content of what's going on here. This is setting the expectations so that they know, so that students know how important it is for them to do the work on the quizzes and so forth, if they in fact want to be able to be assessors. And so this is giving them the kind of rules that we have on there. And you see that we have the click-throughs here that you can choose at what point you want to move to the next step in the slide set. Recommendation is that you yourself go through the slide set, get a feel for where the clicks are before you teach the class. It's always a good idea to be prepared. What we want to do is we want to have a good quality output as far as the way in which TQMS and the materials we present are perceived by our constituents. And in addition, we want to have the best results of the the BELP process itself, because these are the people that we are highly dependent upon to be able to deliver a good TBEM process. Okay, so we're on slide 12 now, and this is basically saying that this is the kind of stuff that you'll be looking for as the instructor, and this is a place where we are now having that one shot to say, hey, you need to be caring about what the instructor sees you as, and this is to help you to be able to get participation from the class as well. And then we go through the specific things about how we select assessors. Again, you'll see that there's imagery in here, such as the person pointing to and selecting someone from the class here. This imagery is coming from the Microsoft PowerPoint library. If you need to, you can always adjust imagery. We do encourage you to appropriately make the slide deck your own. You are the one that's at the end of the day responsible for how it goes forward. And during the season, you may easily be making some adjustments to how you want to be teaching the future slides. Okay, and so then that would be, now we're going into officially the session 1 piece of this, and this is the very basic thing. You'll see that session 1 reflects the same information that we had on the earlier agenda slide. You'll see that throughout the entire process. Basically, there's 16 sessions. That's 4 sessions per day for the 4-day session, for the 4-day class. So basics of TBEM, this particular slide, that image there is of Ashbourne Hill, the facility in the UK that Tata uses for significant training activities. And then we have the common attributes of excellence. These are the core values that are pulled from the TBEM process. You do want to have people kind of have a little bit of a talk about what each of these are, be able to allow there to be conversation about what these things are. And then as we go forward, we can see the fundamental concept about what is this whole thing about with values and why are the values useful. Values drive processes, which is basically what the processes are what you look for in approach. Processes, when you actually practice those end up being deployment. And if those practices are actually good processes, then you'll get outcomes, and that's what we look for as results. All that is then saying, are you learning from the results you're getting and feeding those back into the way in which you approach and deploy things? And so that's where we have that term about learning, sharing, alignment, and integration. Having people get that fundamental idea here where you're talking about it in words is helpful because later on you're going to start talking about it as letters like the ADLIs and things of that type. And that's where you're starting to get into lingo, TBEM lingo. And unless you really make sure you set the basis for where that lingo comes from, you can get people lost pretty well. So this particular slide helps you to really establish that basic understanding that lets people be able to link reality to the TBEM process. And then overall, we just say that TBEM has a lot of characteristics of it that make it useful for us, and that's what the words on this particular slide are about. Okay, and so that's the end of the session 1 area, and we will take up session 2 in a little bit.